Hello, and welcome back to NRI Woman, the show where we share the amazing stories of women of Indian origin living across the world. We hope in sharing these stories that you're inspired, learn something new, or simply know you're not alone in the struggles you face. I'm Nanora.
And I'm Bettina. Whether it's the first time you're listening to our show or are a returning listener, we want to thank you for choosing to spend this time with us. If you haven't subscribed to our show, please consider doing so. It will take you less than a minute, but will help us tremendously. And we have exciting news. We are finally on YouTube. Look for NRI Woman Podcast, or you'll find the link in our show notes. On our show today, we're chatting with Anu Sehgal, the founder and president of Culture Tree, a New York-based platform dedicated to promoting South Asian culture through educational and enrichment programs. Our identity is frequently molded by the mosaic of influences that surround us. And only through reflection do we truly grasp the impact of these influences on our lives. Anu has been fortunate to grow up in a tolerant and accepting environment that embraces a rich cultural heritage.
So I grew up in North India in a small town called Meerut, which is a cantonment. My father was in the Indian Army and my mother was a doctor. And we basically made Meerut our base because my mother's practice couldn't move, although my dad was posted to different places in India. And that is where I grew up. That is our hometown. So my mother is Muslim, my father is Hindu, and we basically were raised in a household which was quite tolerant, quite celebratory about any religion, any castes, any classes that existed. For my mother, who is she's a humanitarian, like she did a lot of work helping underprivileged patients because she's a doctor and really working in villages. For her, the main thing was doing well for everyone. And I think that really came through in our upbringing. And, we used to celebrate right from the very beginning. We used to celebrate all festivals, whether it was Eid or Diwali, Holi, Christmas. We celebrated everything in our household as if it was a religion or a way of life that we followed. And I feel that's what that exists in India. There are subcultures. India is so diverse. People, that don't know India, they think India is one culture, but it has subcultures. It has, so many different ways of celebrating each and every festival also that, we are barely scratching the surface when we are like really talking about India, but there is just so much that everyone can know about all these subcultures that exist in India and also celebrate them.
When we move to a new place, we often try to adapt to its environment, sometimes unintentionally leaving behind familiar traditions and values. But then comes a yearning, a desire that resonates with so many of us, to reconnect with our roots, our culture, and the traditions that shaped who we are.
When I moved to the US, I was too busy assimilating. That was my goal for, I would say, when I was in college and then also when I was working, whether it was my accent, whether it was, the way of life, like how Americans live, going and, seeing all these beautiful exhibits. But then there was a turning point when I realized there are aspects of the Indian culture that I missed. And that's when I started turning back to the culture. And, I was going and seeing all these amazing exhibits or events that were happening in the New York City area. And, I really enjoyed reconnecting with culture in a different way. And I also got involved with several organizations that were furthering Indian culture. And this is like, again, in my 20s, I was volunteering, I was having fun, I was giving back in my own way while I was working in finance. And then once I had my own kids, that was a big turning point for me, because there are so many things that I'd taken for granted until then, which just became so much more important. Um, One of the key things was connecting my kids back to the languages, and I really believe in the power of languages, and the impact it can have in lifelong learning. So that's when I really started looking for programs within the tri-state area where my kids could learn Hindi and Urdu. And that was the inception of really kind of looking into programs and what was available. I also wanted my kids to experience this Indian subcontinent culture in a very kid-friendly way, which I did not see. Like I was going to the Met, I was going to Asia Society, and I was taking my kids, but they were more of spectators. And, I believe that kids cannot learn just by being spectators. They really have to interact with whatever is around them to learn. And that was really the aspect that I was missing. We used to go to the Met. We had gone for this amazing South Asian exhibit. And, my 4-year-old was going through the gallery with me and just looking at the paintings from far away and the sculptures from far away. And, that was really the point when I said that, no, they have to, touch and feel, and the docents have to talk in their language. And there is a lot of cultural exposure in this area, especially, and I'm sure in any big metropolitan area. But really, how are we making it more kid-friendly was my quest. And really, that happened once I became a mother, and I was like, okay, I have to do something about it, because, if I don't, nobody else will.
Leaning on her years of expertise in finance, marketing, and brand building, Anu knew she had to do something. So, she took a bold leap of faith and created something that resonated with her own heart's desire: Culture Tree. This platform aimed to bridge the gap for many like her, parents who longed for their children to connect more deeply with their heritage.
So the vision when I started the Culture Tree was really focusing on language education, and my goal was to expand to all the languages that are really in demand in the tri-state area. And we started with in-person classes. Like there was no, like 5 years ago, there was no virtual classes that were happening. And, we were doing classes in Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi. And that was really that's how I started. I was like, okay, I'm going to become really big in language education. And I'll start with the tri-state area, and hopefully, I can license my brand to different metropolitan areas where there is an over-index or there are sufficient South Asians. So that was the initial vision. However, once my program was well respected within a year, and we had a lot of enrollments, a lot of parents who really respected the organization and the way we were teaching language, which is, a unique way of teaching the Indian American or Pakistani American or South Asian American kids. We are basically using not the traditional approach of teaching. We are really adapting it for the kids here. But once we were respected, the parents themselves said, can you do a little more? In fact, the first cultural program I did was because one of our parents, she came to us. She was a board member at the Children's Museum of Manhattan. And she basically said, you're doing such a fabulous job with language education. Can you host their Eid program? And that was really the first introduction. It happened on its own. It was very organic. And I think it happened because the parents really realized our value. And that was the first program. It was called Eid Around the World. It was attended by 1,000 people in Children's Museum of Manhattan. And it was really a very successful start to our cultural programming, journey. And it still is a benchmark for us because it was just so big. It got a lot of media attention. And we always go back to it as like an example. But that was the kind of start of how we started doing cultural programming.
Language is a powerful bridge that deepens one's connection with their culture. It's not just about words. It's the heart of traditions, values, and stories, holding the memories of the past and the echoes of shared experiences. Through language, one can better understand the cultural nuances, stories, and expressions that may be otherwise lost in translation.
So the kids who are in my program, they're learning the language, but they are also learning very interesting cultural nuances. When they're traveling to India or Pakistan, they're experiencing the culture there and their heritage in a different way because they're absorbing everything that is around them because they know the language. Whether it is looking at a billboard, watching an ad that is in Hindi or Urdu, whether it is, interacting with their grandparents or their relatives. So that cultural exposure goes to the next level when you know the language.
Language is just the tip of the cultural iceberg. Beyond the spoken word, there's a whole universe waiting to be explored. Food, art, festivals, literature, music, and dance carry with them a piece of the cultural puzzle, telling stories and expressing emotions in a way that words alone often can't. Anu, the visionary that she is, recognizes the importance of this holistic approach to cultural connection.
So the cultural programs, when I say cultural programs, it consists different things. So we have been leading book tours. We have started working with authors, and authors that are representing South Asia. The book tours is a really big aspect of what we are doing. So we work very closely with libraries, and the libraries are really using us as experts in coming up and curating books that are recommended for various focus areas that they have. So South Asia or the Asia Heritage Month, or they have the World Literary Festival. So we curate books for them, and then we recommend authors. The second aspect of our cultural programs is really working with our clients in customizing what they want. So celebrating festivals is always going to be a big aspect of that. So we just worked with Hudson Yards, which is a really big cultural melting pot for New York City. It's one of the hottest properties that is coming up in New York City. And we executed their first South Asian program ever. It was called Color for India. And what we did was we celebrated Holi, but we also did a fundraiser for COVID relief in India. And, it was celebrating Holi. We had our puppet show. The Culture Tree has created several puppet shows. And it also included Bollywood dance workshop, performance, dholi, and powder play. People played with gulal. But from festivals aspect, we work with our clients. We basically say, okay, this is what we recommend if you want to celebrate a festival. And basically, it's whatever works for them, and we provide it for them.
Through Culture Tree, Anu has unearthed a sense of purpose that resonates deeply with her roots. While she's the bridge that's helping others connect with their heritage, she also finds herself aligning more closely with her values and beliefs.
What I've learned about myself is that I, in any profession I've worked in, or even in my social interactions with my friends and family, like I'm always the one who wants to be the host, be planning, be the one who is, organizing events and getting people together. And that is something that I'm now doing it in my profession. And I'm doing it from more from cultural angle now, and from families and kids learning about different cultures. But that aspect has stayed throughout. I bring people together. I have always done it. But that aspect is something that, I didn't realize it when it was happening, even before having this company. But I bring people together, and, I enjoy doing it. And I think I'll keep enjoying doing it for the next few years also. When I was really thinking through what is next for me professionally, I really came back to, my experience as a little girl. I when I was a little girl, I was really into teaching. Like, I cannot even tell you. My mom had bought me a blackboard, which we had at our place, and I used to, go through my lessons or my different classes by teaching myself. And I used to pretend to be the teacher teaching this alternate Anu and me learning through the teacher. So I really come back to that. I do sometimes think, if I had followed through this passion for education right from the beginning, how would things have been? How would I have evolved? So that's always a question I'm thinking about, because that really was my passion right from my childhood. But at the same time, I am running a business, and I couldn't have done it without all the focus I had when I was working in finance, when I got my MBA, when I was working in marketing and brand management. So it has helped me, but I do think about the fact, okay, where would I have been had I not done, all this and just gone into the education field right away?
We often find ourselves pondering the what ifs that sprinkle our journey. Yet, as time unfolds, we come to realize that each twist and turn, every serendipity and challenge contributes to our unique and meaningful story. So the next time we find ourselves lost in a maze of what ifs, let's remember this: the most breathtaking adventure isn't somewhere else. It's right here, in the unfolding story of our own lives. Because ultimately, things have a way of working out as they are meant to.
So my hopes for the future are, firstly, on a personal level, I do want my kids to be fluent in, their heritage language. In their case, it's Hindi. I want them to be proud of their culture. I want them to love their culture. I want them to tell everyone around them how much they love their culture, how much they flourish in learning about India, in the case of my kids. But at the same time, in general, I want the South Asian American kids to learn as much as they can about their heritage countries. And again, just be proud of it. I want kids and families in general to really just take in anything and everything they can about not just South Asian culture, but any culture, any country, and any language, and really become open-minded, empathetic, and tolerant, and celebratory about any culture that exists in this world. So that is my overarching hope. For my own company, I do want to keep growing. I want to do things that have not been done by any cultural organization in the past. It's not an easy journey, I have to say. Being an entrepreneur it can be isolating sometimes. It can be a lot of hard work and a lot of hustle. But my hope is that, we all learn about each other's cultures in different ways from, very early on. And we are just happy, and we all exist, all coexist in this melting pot, and are just happy learning about different cultures and countries and different, diverse backgrounds. That is my hope.
In today's interconnected world, coexisting with people from various cultures isn't a choice. It's simply the way things are. Everyone's got their own cultural spice, a different way of seeing things, special traditions, and values that shape them. The more we celebrate these differences, the richer our lives get. But the secret sauce to understanding others? Knowing ourselves, knowing our own stories, what makes us tick, give us better lens to see through, and the empathy and curiosity we need to get along with people from all walks of life.
Anu's story is a powerful example of how this journey of self-discovery can blossom into something remarkable. Building a career or a business aligned with one's true passion is a rarity. But discovering that in a field where your culture influences people, shaping their beliefs, values, and presence in the world is even more exceptional. With Culture Tree, Anu has found a way to do what she loves, what she's good at, what the world needs, and something that she is paid for. One might say she's found her ikigai. So the next time you find yourself stuck in a maze of what ifs, remember Anu's story. Your own ikigai might just be around the corner. I'm Bettina.
And I'm Nanora. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you'll join us again for our episode next week. We can be found at www.nriwoman.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just look for NRI Woman. If you or someone you know has a story to share, please get in touch with us at hello@nriwoman.com or tweet us at NRI_woman. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at NRI Woman Podcast. Please help us spread the stories of these amazing women by sharing it with your family and friends. You can find the details to connect with the guest in our show notes. NRI Woman episodes come out every Thursday, so make sure you subscribe. Until next time, keep learning, keep inspiring, and be kind.